Hello everyone and welcome to my video on the angle relationship graphic organizer. We're going to go through and fill out this graphic organizer for 5 different kinds of angles or angle relationships. We have vertical angles, linear pair, supplementary angles, complementary angles, and adjacent angles. So let's start with adjacent angles and work our way clockwise. So adjacent angles are two angles that are next to each other and share a common side. So this could look many different ways, but either way we have an angle. Okay. And then they share a common side. So this one in the middle that I just drew is the common side. So if I had an angle here on the left, that angle would be adjacent to this one on the right, because again they share that common side down the middle. Right? So those are what adjacent angles look like, and they can look very different depending, but in this case that's one example. Vertical angles are two angles across from each other on intersecting lines. They are always congruent. So if you have two intersecting lines, we got one line and then another line. Vertical angles are across from each other. So this blue one would be vertical angles with this blue one. Right, and they would be congruent. To show two angles are congruent, which means they have the same angle measure, we put arcs. So since the blue angles each have one arc, that means they are congruent to each other. And then another pair of vertical angles would be these red ones. Right? These are another set of vertical angles. And again, they're going to be congruent. They're not going to be the same as the blue one, but they'll be the same as each other. So I'm going to give them two arcs. So any angle with two arcs is the same measure as another with two, and any with one is the same as anything with one. So here, the red angles are one pair of vertical angles, and the blue are another pair. All right, linear pair has to be both adjacent and supplementary. So supplementary, we're going to do next. They add up to 180 degrees. But in this case, a linear pair is going to be two angles that make up 180 degrees and are adjacent. So this is an example here. We have the blue angle, right, and that is adjacent here to the red angle, and they make up 180 degrees. We know this because they make a straight line. Right here I could see this straight line. These two angles make up that straight line of 180 degrees. So therefore they are both supplementary and adjacent, because here they have that side in the middle that they share. All right, so this is a linear pair. All linear pairs are supplementary, but not all supplementary angles are linear pairs. They don't have to be next to each other to be a linear or to be supplementary. Right? Let's say I have this angle here and this angle here. These are not adjacent, right? They are not sharing a side. They're not next to each other. I could literally move this one and put it anywhere, but they are supplementary because they're going to add to 180 degrees. Let's say this one is 100 degrees and this one is 80. Since they would combine and add to 180 degrees, they are supplementary. Right? So they don't have to be right next to each other. They don't have to be adjacent like a linear pair. Right? A linear pair is when they are adjacent, whereas supplementary, they could be or they could not be. It doesn't really matter. Same thing with complementary. Complementary are two angles that add to 90 degrees, so I could have it one of two ways. Those two angles could be adjacent, right? So in this case, we have one angle. The blue one is adjacent to the red one here, and they are complementary because they make 90-degree angle, which I would know if I had that symbol saying it is a right angle. Or maybe they're not adjacent. Right? So they don't have to be adjacent to each other. I could have one angle here and then another angle somewhere else. All right, and let's say this one is 40 degrees and this one's 50. Since those two add up to 90 degrees, they would be complementary even though they're not adjacent. Right? They could be anywhere, right? It could be over here, over here. It doesn't really matter where they are as long as they add up to 90 degrees.